You are young, have all the time in the world, only a few bucks in your pocket, but you own a car. This feeling of freedom is captured by the indie game Keep Driving, a game that turns the open road into an RPG filled with choice, charm, and hitchhikers whose stories you'll discover along the way. In this episode, my dear husband Eve is chatting with Joseph and Christopher from the indie studio YCJY Games to talk about their indie hit Keep Driving and what happened during 5 years of development. Don't want to spoil too much, but it was a road trip in itself. From failed prototypes to scrapping ideas to frozen pizzas, all of that here now on Open Indie.
I'm here today with Joseph and Christopher from YCJY Studio. Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
Nice to have you on our show. Thank you for taking the time. How do you guys feel about Keep Driving now that it's released?
Pretty happy now. It feels good that it's done after 5 years of work, and it's kind of surreal. It's kind of weird that it is done. Even more surprisingly, people are enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm the same. It's like, just like I said, we worked so long on this. It's more than 5 years in the making, and we also we failed making this game once before. I think we'll get to that later as well, but yeah, like it's very surreal, like you said, that it's out and that people are playing the game and people are liking the game. People are really liking the game, and it's an amazing feeling. I'm the guy who does the programming, and Joseph is the guy who does the art, by the way.
I immediately fell in love with the art style and the music and overall mood it creates, but we'll also get to that later. For the listeners of ours who maybe have not played Keep Driving yet, can you describe to us a typical run in your game? So what do players see, what do they hear, and what kind of mood do you try to create?
It starts off with you being a young person around 18 years old that just got their license, and it's sometime in the early 2000s. So you get to choose your first car, your starting equipment will be, and where you start in your life as well if you're unemployed or a student. And then you pick your car, and you kind of go off on the road. In the beginning, you get the first mission or quest, you could call it, is that your friends call you up or write you a letter and tell you, oh, there's a big festival on the other side of the island where you live. Come and meet us there. So you have to pick up a tent and you get the ticket as well. And then, come meet us. So the first run or the first kind of few hours of the playthrough is just exploring the car, the items, and then the mechanics of the road events, which are essentially abstracted versions of fighting against mundane things on the road. So like being stuck behind a tractor, or sheep on a country road, or an eagle flying above you, or a rainbow that distracts you.
Yeah.
And so that's the feeling is kind of this free, youthful. You have a lot of life and a lot of things to do, and kind of naive and joyful.
Yeah, and it's also like your goal in the beginning is like, we kind of push you to go to the festival in the beginning, but there's also like a lot of distractions and things that can happen on the way. So you'll pick up these hitchhikers that essentially become your like party members, if this would be like a traditional RPG. And they have their own, like some of them have their own motivations and places they want to go to and stuff. So you can very easily get like sidetracked and lose track of going to the festival and actually find something entirely different to do instead. So I think the first run for a lot of people would be quite different. We have heard a lot of like stories people are telling they did, and it's kind of funny because even though there are like these set stories that we have put out in the world, like how they encounter them and how they feel, like what they did to make them encounter them, kind of makes each player have their own little stories and adventure. And every run is like that too. There's a lot of random things that can happen that push you in a different direction. So. And I don't want to spoil like too many of this, because I think that's part of the fun of the game, is like being surprised and discover these things. But there are a lot of distractions for you and a lot of ways to play the game.
I'm happy with the CD. I feel like that was a nice part of it as well. I'm really happy with that Christopher managed to make an in-game music player, essentially.
Oh yeah, and that's like a huge thing also, I think, like for what you're gonna experience the first time, like the music of the game. We're really happy with the soundtrack. It's from local
Yeah.
Gothenburg bands. So that's something that will also like set the mood for the entire journey, I think. And I think that's something also that we've got a lot of good reception for. People seem to really enjoy the music, and it fits very well, in our opinion, with the gameplay and everything. And there is a lot of time in between events when nothing's really happening. You're just looking out the car window, you see these beautiful backgrounds, and you hear this music. And I think that's a huge part of the game as well. Even though you're not like actively playing, you're actively there and you're riding in a car. I think that's something that a strength of the game too. I think like this quiet moment.
100%. So I captured myself humming a tune from your game, which is amazing. Typically does not happen that often. And I also saw that you already published some of the tracks on Spotify, which is also quite nice, and it will accompany me on my next road trip in real life.
Oh, great.
We haven't heard that from a lot of people, but like this is a new like road trip soundtrack now. And it's great, but some of the bands are really small also, so I think it's really fun that they get this little spotlight on them as well.
When I researched our episode here, I also saw that you made another tiny game before that, or one of your first ones that was on itch.io, which was called Keep Walking EP.
Yeah.
And I also love the soundtrack from this game as well. I already looked everyone up who was on this thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, technically this was we did the Aquatic Adventure of the Last Human, but like after that, Keep Driving was the game that we wanted to make, which was like a spiritual successor to Keep Walking at the time. Now it's evolved into something much more. I think it's a little bit like, it's a stretch to call it like a spiritual successor. I guess like spiritual successor, sure, but it's so much bigger than what we had imagined at first.
When you got started in creating Keep Driving, we already touched upon this a little bit, but what led you to create a management RPG about driving?
Oh, this game has been so many things. I think management maybe was something that was there from the start though, because it's so like essential for an RPG or like for a road trip. Like you have to have fuel and money and stuff. So I think maybe that aspect has always been there. Do you remember like the very first version of the game? We always had like this management aspect, right?
Mm-hmm. I have a feeling my first, yeah, there was definitely some management, but I have like this weird feeling that we were talking about making. We were talking pretty early on making like an Oregon Trail.
Yeah.
I remember that, and like saying like, oh, it'd be fun making like a modern day Oregon Trail, because that doesn't exist. Like there's
an early idea.
Yeah, that was like the first thing. Yeah, and then we were saying that if we were
about it being like in real time, that like a mobile game or something, like an idle thing that you would go on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like an idle. We were thinking like an idler.
Yeah. That was a long distance. 2016 we went when we had these discussions.
Yeah.
And then for a while the game was very much like a WarioWare kind of game for a little while. There was but we made a bunch of mini games and stuff. So when you talk to people, you played like they say like a line like I used to work as a bartender ... and then you like worked as a bartender for a micro game. Or they like, I like watching fireworks, and there was a little mini game where you click fireworks kind of, and that was the game for a while also. While you were driving, like the whole car in the center of the screen, the car going from left to right, that thing has always been there. But then like all the other systems and stuff has had a lot of different iterations.
Even how destinations function.
Yeah.
I remember being pretty different, and how like items and everything. Yeah.
So you went through quite a few iterations until you landed with the thing that we have the joy of playing now.
Oh yeah.
So many iterations, and even this like as we said, we worked for a year, like 2016 to 2017, somewhere around there, for a year on the game, and there we tried a lot of different weird ideas, and nothing really. We never had like a whole piece of the game that was like had a red thread through it or anything. But even then, when we started again in 2020 working on the game, there has been so many iterations on this like new real version or whatever you want to call it of the game. As well, like for a while we didn't even have any like combat or whatever you want to call it. We just had this idea of having different keywords, unlocking different like options in almost like a dialogue tree kind of event. So like, yeah.
There was also a moment when we had you were driving the car.
Oh yeah.
In a weird like you were actually like, so we had the whole interface, like the whole HUD system where you see like the LCD screen and everything. Like like on that there was a steering wheel and a gear shift and the gas pedals and like window wipers and a bunch of other stuff.
Be in the right speed limit and stuff for the road you were taking.
Yeah, keeping the speed limit, and then you have to like decide when to get off the road, and you can miss stops and stuff. It was more of a driving game, but at the same time, it wasn't driving. It was like an event comes up that tells you like, oh, now you have to turn a little bit to the left, and then you have to do that within a time limit.
Lower the speed and turn to the right, and so it was like kind of a mini game kind of thing also, or like a simulation almost.
Yeah, it was like more of a simulation, but kind of almost like a what's it called? Those beat games, like like a Guitar Hero.
Oh yeah,
but for cars. It was like a Car Hero. It could have been called
Car Hero. Great.
I hope someone listens to this and then steals that idea.
Yeah,
a Car Hero.
Yeah, please do. Yeah,
please steal that idea, because we're not making another.
No, exactly, because we're not gonna make it anyway. So. That actually be like they could make it the mobile game, and they'll have completed our first idea of what Keep Driving was.
Yeah, you get the notification like you have to turn to the right, and you just have to open. Yeah,
exactly.
Was there one moment that you can pinpoint where you said, okay, now everything clicks together, or was it more like a natural process over time, and you kept trying until you said, hey, that's it?
I think it was the point of no return, kind of more, because we wanted to finish the game, and what we had at the time was definitely the best thing that we had so far, I think. But it was like, no, we can't change this anymore, because we had changed the system so many times, or that's what I feel like at least. But we did have some, like, we did a talk in Skövde where we used to study, like on game design, talking about post-void, and we talked about you have to have something playable that's enjoyable and you can test it early. And that was like what we taught out. But at the same time, when we looked at ourselves, we're like, we don't have this for Keep Driving. We have to actually do something more like finished that's has to be in the game, like mechanic-wise, because it was still very vague what the actual gameplay was.
We had to put our money where our mouth was.
Yeah.
One of my favorite comedians had a nice saying about this: I have many beliefs and I live by none of them.
That's how we live there.
Yeah.
What is the feature you're most proud of in the version of the game you have right now?
For me, it's something that I think that has come true. That's been like not a mantra, but like a design philosophy, which is like storytelling through mechanics, which is something that I wanted to have into the game, which covers it's not like one feature, but it's like a design philosophy more, that you can tell stories with different mechanics and stuff. And I think we recently got like a review on Polygon that really appreciated that aspect of the game, like how the hitchhikers have these like passive good and bad abilities. So you like some parts of them, like could be translated to you like some of their personality traits as a skill that you use, but you also, there's some parts of them that is not as fun and like these negative things that you have to play around kind of. But at the same time, when you kick them or when they're not in your car, you kind of miss those annoyances of them as well. Like there's this kid that stops to pee all the time, which is pretty annoying. Then when she's not there anymore, you're like, oh, you haven't had a pee break in a while. And that's also a good place for you as a driver to maybe stop the car. It's a very easy event, so you can just use a cigarette there and it's complete. So it's a little break for you as well as like a driver.
I love that some people use the kids' pee breaks as moments to use another skill of where like the suits can like give you money essentially.
Yeah.
But you have to complete the event to get that money. Or you want to complete it so you don't lose the money that he's put out. So he put out these two money symbols onto the track, and you get money from that. But then you have to complete those symbols as well, or those threats. And I think I like the idea of when the kid goes out to pee, the suit kind of leans over your shoulder and tries to give you advice on like how to do your taxes better, or you're just like being annoying, and then when the kid comes back, it's like, oh, it's more fun in games again.
Because the hiker also has one of those abilities. It just gives you a bunch of stuff.
Oh yeah.
But you have to find time to use it, and that's like a good place to just stop and take it in. I think it's called or something like.
Yeah, take it in.
So that's also work actively with like taking a break and like use that skill now instead. So like if you're like open for all the abstract like game mechanics and stuff, and like think of what you're doing, I think there's a lot of like storytelling in those mechanics, and I think that's something that actually came through, and it was something I was very not sure that the people would get, or like that we wouldn't make it good enough for people to see it, but I feel like people do see it, and that's fun. And also the thing that people can experiment and try different things, but it doesn't say like if you drink coffee you cure the cold status effect, for instance, but if you try it, it will do that, and like you can experiment with different mechanics and stuff, and most of the time the game will react to what you're doing. It's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. There are bits and pieces of clever design that are sprinkled around your game everywhere. So you mentioned coffee. So you have to drink it hot, of course. If you just put it in the back and I'll drink it later, then it cools down.
And cold coffee is not nice.
Exactly. Only if there's nothing else to drink.
I'm also pretty happy with the fact that how the backgrounds work, because that's been such a struggle for literally like the whole time. Just getting the backgrounds to look good and like to parallax well, and like all the different biomes and the trees and how they interact with each other, and then how they interact with the map. And when you're driving, like when you drive in, like you're getting closer to the city, you start seeing the city appear from the back, like further away, and then it appears closer and closer. And then how the cities kind of like the cities looked like shit for a long time. Like it was I was actually really worried for not the city but the town. Just how we did it wasn't, I don't know, it didn't come together until a lot later.
There's no nice transition a very long time.
Yeah, the transitions, exactly. And like to me it's kind of incredible that after all of that it worked out, and they're like, when you play the game, the world just feels like a real place, and it's 2D, and it's like I don't think I've ever, like, I can't remember playing a 2D game that has this kind of open world feeling to it, and that it generates the whole world like that.
That's something really special. Was the Steam Next Fest demo last year the first time you showed the game to the public? And if so, what was the feedback you got?
To the public, yes, I think, right? Or like you showed it on Gamescom.
Yeah, Gamescom, but also a
Yeah.
indie game dungeon here in Stockholm.
That's not really the public though. It's only game developers.
Yeah, it was only game developers, but it technically is public.
It's a small like indie game event in Stockholm. So it's like kind of behind closed doors. It's not super public, but I guess anyone could go in there and see it.
What was some of the feedback that you got, or what would you say was the most valuable one when you first time showed it public?
On the Steam Next Fest, we had a demo that was very like much tighter than anything we had before. And before that, it was just basically our development project, which was messy and big. There was a character creation, there was a start and stuff, but it was not finished in the same way that the demo has like a beginning and an end, and like, yeah, some kind of pacing and stuff. So I think that's a huge difference between those two like public showings.
With Gamescom and the indie game dungeon, those both the first times, like people that we weren't very close to got to see the game and play it. And that was pretty fun, seeing how people were interacting with it and how surprisingly people were kind of engrossed by it. And with the indie game dungeon, it was pretty cool because there was so many people were so impressed by it when we were still we were so tired of it in a way, and we were like, we didn't really see how it was impressive. So when showing it at indie game dungeon, it was kind of cool having like Christopher said, a bunch of other game developers that hadn't seen it before see it and like, oh, whoa, this is crazy. This is such a cool game. But then at the same time, they had a bunch of complaints, like which were all really good, but like how some of the menus worked, how some of the things, like there was a lot of notes to take, but it kind of like gave this feeling of like, oh, okay, people are actually kind of interested. And then at Gamescom, it was kind of the same thing, but much more that people really liked it. There was another game developer there that stayed for like 3 hours playing it. Well, he was like totally into it. And he wrote after that, and like anyone who played, most people who played it, and like it was also very obvious to see that kids did not like it at all. Like anyone under 15 was just like, nah, this is not my thing. But I'm not sure if that's the reality on Steam and how that's turned out. But it seems like it's still a bit older audience.
You kind of either need to be nostalgic for this time, or like maybe have a little bit more patience.
Yeah.
And I don't think necessarily you need to have like the nostalgic feeling for or like the early 2000s or something. I think it's just the feeling of being free and being young, and like living that kind of life for a little while. Because you have this kind of fake nostalgia you can feel. Like I can feel nostalgic to the 80s in a way, but I was born in the 90s, so like that's weird because I haven't experienced it. But you have like all this media that's nostalgic about it. So I think there's it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have lived at that time, but you have to have lived that kind of life or like being in that age. I think it's more important maybe.
With nostalgia, there's almost a sense of just having been in a car.
Yeah.
Like it's not like you can be in the backseat of your parents' car. And I like that this was something that Ville Hartman, who did all the sound design for the game, he said this after we released the trailer, when we announced the game. Because he was like, I didn't believe in the game, even though we were working on it. But after I saw the trailer, I was like, wait, I bet it's going to reach an audience. But after I saw it, I realized the audience is anyone who's ever been in a car.
Yeah, that was very well.
And then that was like, yeah, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's right. It's not about the driver as much as the person or just having been in a car and having enjoyed the ride with your parents or with someone else. And it's that feeling of, oh, we're getting in here. Let's go. We're going out there, whatever we're doing. And especially when you're young, sometimes like the smallest trips, like if you're just going to your grandparents or you're going away to like a summer house or something else or a friend's place. But just the fact that you're getting into the car and you're packing all your things and you have your little CD and you put the CD in, or you have your MP3 player with your headphones on, that all feels like an adventure.
Yeah, and every like road stop is very memorable also. Even if it's just going to a crappy restaurant and like eating some crappy food, it's like, oh, where are we now? It's like an interesting part of the adventure.
And I think you captured this with Keep Driving quite well. You already told me that you were going through so many iterations and you got quite a lot of feedback. Is there one bug that you had in the game that you upgraded to a feature?
I feel like there should be some of those, but not any like obvious one. I mean, there's been tons of bugs that have been hard to solve, but
I read your question and I was thinking about it. I was like, no, I don't know if there were any, but I was thinking maybe Christopher has a bug that he kept in that I just didn't even realize was a bug.
I feel like there are. I can't think of anyone on the top of my head now, but maybe I'll keep that question in the back of my head.
Now that we talked about Keep Driving, which everyone who's listening should definitely play, how did you both get started in game development?
We went to the game design school in Skövde, a small city in the middle of Sweden, which has become like, what's it called, game school town, pretty much. There's a lot of big companies there now as well, like Coffee Stain and what's the name, Stamlock, the guys who made V Rising.
Valheim people.
Oh, the Valheim is from there also, yeah. There's a big game industry scene there. And they had a game school there, and that's why that city has become like that. So that's where we met, studying game design. So we're both from Gothenburg, but we didn't know each other until we moved to Skövde.
And then we played music together in like the school band. And then we started our own band together.
Yeah.
And then after university, I stayed for a little bit longer in Skövde, but then once we both were back in Gothenburg, we lived together for a year, and that's when we started.
That's what we made. Like we made Keep Walking, like when we lived in Skövde, and then we finished it when we lived together. And then neither one of us could get any jobs in the game industry, so we started our own company and made. I think because when we released Keep Walking, we got some nice like attention from a few magazines and stuff, like internet magazines, and
yeah,
we were like, oh, maybe we're good enough to actually make a game and release it. So I think that sparked like the idea that we could make games ourselves.
Yeah, like 2014, it was kind of like a big, for us at least, getting like Rock Paper Shotgun, that they wrote like something about our game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Was kind of cool. Like, oh shit, Rock Paper Shotgun wrote something. And PC Gamer had like this week's top 3 games.
Yeah.
And Itch didn't have that many games on it, and Steam didn't even have that many games on them, like indie games at least yet.
Also, the site called Game Jolt at the time, I think, didn't we?
Yeah, Game Jolt. Yeah, I think Itch was the main one, and then Game Jolt as well.
I found Keep Walking over itch.io, so it's still up.
Yeah.
It's worth it alone for the soundtrack.
Yeah, it's nice.
Is there a moment in your journey as indie developers that you will always remember?
I think there are many moments. Like every game release for once is always a moment, I think. With Hip Driving, we have it very recently, but it always feels weird, I would say, when you release a game. But also we have a lot of struggles as well. Like after Aquatic Adventure, we worked like part-time. I was at the school and you were in this amusement park in Gothenburg called Liseberg. And I was kind of struggling at times. Like economically, we didn't have any money basically. And
I mean, even during Aquatic as well.
yeah.
Like we were both living together, and then I was sort of living in my mom's place.
Yeah, and I moved back into with my parents for a while also there.
The whole idea was like we just keep doing our thing.
Yeah, we were very laser focused on making that game at that time.
Yeah,
It was insane the amount of hours we put in. Like just work. We basically worked every day.
that's it. Yeah,
When we were awake, we worked on the game. And then we slept. And then we worked on the game, kind of.
but we had a regular going out for 30 minutes a day when we went and bought a frozen pizza.
Yeah, like a zombie walk.
Yeah, so we walk over to the local supermarket, get some frozen pizzas, and then come back.
Yeah, it was very close.
That would say it. That was like the only thing. I still remember, like, I had to do like a passport photo at the end of when we were working on Aquatic, and that passport photo, I still look like I'm older than I am today.
And I think then also like a big moments for me was with Sea Salt, our second commercial game. When we got funded for that game, that was insane because that meant we were free from taking these part-time jobs and everything, and we could fully focus on the game. And then also like before the release of that game, we did this whole like journey.
Yeah.
Kind of. We went to It started with Gamescom, and then we went to Korea and Japan. Korea for a little indie festival there called Busan Indie Connect, and then Tokyo Game Show, when we were standing up on the stage and talking. I had shorts on me also, which is apparently not very nice in Japan. Like it's you're supposed to have not shorts when you're on stage.
Learning by doing.
Yeah, but it was fun. It was a lot of meetings and met fun people and see Japan and Korea and stuff. Yeah, it was like it's not a moment, but it's like a period of time that was very fun, very formative.
Yeah, with a lot of stuff. Like even before that, I mean, I went to Brighton and London, and then to there was another festival, and then GDC.
Yeah, GDC.
And yeah, it was just like there's a lot of traveling and a lot of things. It was fun, but pretty stressful as well.
I can imagine, but I'm really glad you stuck to it.
Post-Void, for me at least, was like probably the coolest moment, and probably the most important, one of the most, when we released Post-Void. I think that was like one of the more important moments in like creative or working life. Like the feeling of working so hard on so many things and never really feeling like you make it, and then or like that it works out, and then you make something that you really care about, or like that you just thought it was fun to make, and it works out really well.
Yeah, and people enjoy because with Post-Void we didn't do any like marketing beforehand or stuff. We announced the game at the same time as we launched the game, so there wasn't any build up or anything. So it was very much a shot in the dark. But then people really liked it very fast, and that was quite intense. Yeah.
As I told you before, when we started the interview, I also played Post-Void quite a lot. When I stumbled upon Keep Driving during Steam Next, I was pleasantly surprised that you are the same guys who made Post-Void.
Yeah, a lot of people are surprised because the games are very different from one another. I think all our games are quite different from each other, but yeah, Post-Void definitely sticks out.
That makes it so beautiful. So in research for our podcast, I also checked out your other games that are also up on itch.io. I fell in love with each one of them. Even Banana Boy.
Banana Boy? Oh, you're talking Banana Boy. That's so funny.
Hidden Gem.
I tried to crack the high score, but I haven't figured out a good tactic yet.
I think no one can beat that leaderboard. It was like this band that I got really into it, and all they did their whole tour was just try to beat each other.
Yeah, but that score, it's on the Android leaderboards only, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. That's true.
A man can dream.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What would you say is the best part of developing games as a duo, apart from the frozen pizza?
Yeah.
Well, it's always nice to be two people instead of one, right? We have company.
One is the loneliest number I ever need.
No, we've really grown together, I think.
You got it quite figured out that you're dividing the work. Both of you are more responsible for the art style and for the visual side, and Christopher, you're more into programming.
That's how we have done it from the start, and it works. And then like on the design front, we're doing it together, like discussing how to do it.
Yeah.
There's never been any like weird. I want to do the art, or Joseph wants to do the programming.
Yeah.
Just thinking about it is kind of funny because I would never let you touch the code.
Yeah, that's funny.
I keep thinking about when Russ was saying that you could like fix bugs.
Yeah, there's no chance.
Yeah, but cool that you figured this one out. Talking about YCJY, your studio, if you could send a message back in time when you started out, what would it be?
I'm quite happy where we are right now. So even though we might have done a lot of stupid mistakes in the back, I think all those mistakes takes you to where you are today. So I don't know. I wouldn't change too much. I mean, maybe it's like eat better and exercise more or something.
Exercise, definitely more. Yeah.
Yeah, I still don't exercise much, so that still goes. I can say it to myself today as well, but I won't listen to myself. But yeah, I think like there's obviously things that economically we could have done, like maybe better things earlier, like especially when we first got our first payment from Aquatic Adventure.
Oh yeah.
Then at the same time, we were very desperate for money at the time, but we took up. We weren't very good with finance.
Read contracts better would be my first thing.
Oh yeah, that's a big one also.
Valuable advice.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that at the same time, like all those mistakes, nothing has been drastic, any mistakes or anything, and all of them have been formative. And very happy with Keep Driving and where we are right now, and with Post Void. I feel like we're figuring it out as we go.
Oh, great, which is fine. Do you maybe have some advice for someone who's just starting out in game dev?
Make a lot of small games, and don't worry about like making the big one.
Yeah. Our mistake was like after Aquatic, we tried to make Keep Driving, which is our biggest game, and that almost ruined us. I think like that could have been, if we didn't stop working on Keep Driving, I think we wouldn't work in games today, because it was too big of a project for us at the time.
Jonathan always, like our friend, he always tells us like to take like a break and just try to think of things, like prototype more and like decide on the project, be more selective on the projects that you choose. I think we were in the beginning, at least, I mean, with Aquatic, it was, I don't even remember why we picked that exactly, but and then with Keep Driving, that we thought that was going to be a small project, and that was foolish. And like,
Yeah.
keep working on it for a year was way too, it was too long.
It was so vague. We didn't really have an idea of what the game was going to be when we started working on it. Like if we compared that to what we did, like we knew exactly kind of what game, exactly.
But even Sea Salt,
Yeah.
it's like jumping into the only other project we had going was Sea Salt, instead of like having made.
Yeah, that was because of the game jam.
Yeah, and because of the game jam. So if we'd gone to 5 game jams, maybe we'd have had 5 projects we could pick from and pick the best one there. But we went to 1.
So then good advice for new developers is do a lot of game jams, I think.
Yeah, do a lot of game jams. Yeah, and also read contracts.
Read contracts. If something's too good to be true, maybe it's too good to be true.
Talking about your studio's name, YCJY, how did you come up with the name? I think I can figure out what the CJ is for, but why and why?
It's like a seasonal story.
Yeah, it's like when you ask the Joker how he gets his scars. It's like the same thing with that. How did you get those Ys?
What's the best one you can tell here?
It's Y as in WHY, like why Christopher Josef Y. Why are you doing this, kind of? Is one like interpretation of it. I like your like peace sign idea also.
I noticed that when we stood next to each other in photos, sometimes Christopher would have the peace sign up, and then if I do it as well, it becomes YCJY, like the 2 peace signs, and then that's in between.
I like that story. Talking about your studio a little more and about support, where do you guys get support from? So you already touched upon that you had some contracts that you rather not have signed, but right now, do you have a publisher funding, or where do you get support from?
With Keep Driving, we have good contracts. We have the same funder as we have had on Sea Salt, Kowloon Knights. So they have been part funding the game. And then we also got some investment from European Creative Europe program. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Yeah, exactly.
So those are the two finance. Like without those, like especially Kowloon, we wouldn't be able to keep driving.
At least not for this long.
No. So that's what's been funding us here. But we have never worked with a publisher on our like main game, or like initial release. But we have worked with publishers for console releases, and also with Sea Salt, we actually had a publisher on launch in Japan, like specific. But yeah, otherwise we have been self-published. And with the funding we get for our Keep Driving and Sea Salt, it's not by a publisher, so we still publish the game ourselves, but they fund the entire thing.
I mean, the main part is it's self-published, so I always feel like it's very like us having all creative freedom. We've always had that, and I think that's like the main point, at least that's important. With Kowloon as a indie game fund, they go in and back with the financial side, but not with like publishing part. Before that, it was like in the beginning we kind of just started out with saved up money, whatever we made from summer jobs before that, and then it was just offers a school job in the kindergarten or the birth preschool, and me as like working as theme park and postman as well, and just random jobs, like whatever you can get money to make the game, like
Side hustles to live your dream.
Like in Keep Driving.
You like and Keep Driving, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's weird. I never thought about it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thought.
Yeah, I think also like that's like financial support, but then also we have a lot of support from friends, obviously, and most importantly, I think Denaton Games, Jonathan and Dennis, and also Niklas Åkerblad, who's like part of that gang also. Like they made us feel like what we're doing is something good and important. Like that's been like very much support from the very start from Aquatic Adventure.
Yeah, from even before, like just before we started, that's when we met them, and like they've always been there for us. So that's a huge thing.
Yeah. So I think without them, we would probably maybe not have the motivation to continue. Also, they've treated us like equals, kind of. Even though the other guys who made Hotline Miami, which is I think the biggest hit from Gothenburg, and one of the best indie games ever, maybe also.
Agreed.
But so being like acknowledged by those guys really helped.
Which touches perfectly on the next question I was about to ask, since you're both located in Gothenburg. How would you describe the indie scene there?
I would say it's pretty divided, because we're in this one little group, and then there are other groups as well. And every once in a while, the groups interact with each other. It's not something that we are actively trying to change, I would say, either. But that's kind of how it looks like today. Like there has been two bigger companies in Gothenburg, which are, I would assume they would be classified as indie, but compared to us, they feel kind of corporate, and that's Image and Form, they do the SteamWorld games, and Zoink, who did like Lost in Random and stuff. But then those two have become Thunderful now, I think.
Yeah.
And they always felt like bigger fry than us. And then there's Denaton and Niklas, and there was also Erik Svedeng. He's not in Gothenburg anymore, but he worked on Elle's Heartbreak, and I felt like that was another little clique of people. And then there are more cliques now as well, like with the Sweden Game Arena. Like there's a new education program here in games as well. Like there's some young people
called Irigo. Irigo has a pretty good.
Yeah, Irigo. But they're pretty separated, I feel like. But there are also some people in Gothenburg who are trying to get everybody to know each other more. And I think they're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, we were just at an event last week, and that was pretty fun. And I mean, we didn't know anyone, but there's like just from hanging out there that one evening, we met some people. Then we became friends with new ones as well. And we found out that a game that we had been looking at recently was made in Gothenburg as well. So it was kind of fun seeing like, oh, there are some pretty cool smaller games being made here now. At last,
yeah,
because it felt like it wasn't that much, at least in this like the smaller indie scene. Like as Christopher said, it was just these AA or not even AA, but like bigger indie companies, and not like individuals as much. Besides Niklas and Erik and Jonathan and Dennis.
Yeah, which is cool to hear that the scene is evolving and you get to know more people.
Yeah, for sure. At the same time, I do kind of like that it's not as much game dev there. Like the fact that there's other people around, and like there's a good scene, like a really good music scene in Gothenburg. There's some kind of an interest in film there as well, with a really big, maybe Scandinavia's biggest film festival. I like that there's other things besides games, and like if we want to go to meet a lot of the game devs, you go to Skövde or Stockholm. So it's nice.
Yeah, or Malmö is also pretty big. Yeah.
Yeah, or even Malmö, and literally any other city besides Gothenburg.
It's kind of funny because I feel like most of our friends are not game developers, right? Like we know some game developers who are also our friends, like, but in our close like friends, most of them are not game developers. But I feel like a lot of friends in Stockholm or in Malmö or in Skövde, like they only hang out with other game developers, kind of.
Always good to look what's beyond the things you are doing. And I think you guys manage that quite well. Overall, you would say that Sweden is a good place for developing games?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it's a good country to do a lot of creative work.
The darkness and the cold makes you want to go and stay inside as well. Like you were talking about Split, like if I was living in Split, I would probably not be indoors as much.
It's harder to sit in front of the computer when it's 30 degrees and the sun is shining.
Exactly, yeah. And like it's beautiful, yeah. I mean, like I wouldn't mind going out on a boat or fishing instead. Like that seems like a better day.
When it's cold in Gothenburg, it's cold in a different way. It's always when it rains sideways, almost like up in your face. And it's very windy. It rains a lot. But the summers in Gothenburg are amazing.
What's your vision for YCJY Studios in the future? So are you already working on your next game, or are you currently hands full with Keep Driving?
It's probably going to be Keep Driving for the remainder of this year, I think. That's like the plan we have.
Yeah, I think so too.
We have some content ideas and stuff and want to add some. We don't want to go into details about like what exactly, but we want to like support the game. Obviously, I'm working right now on the controller support, which is something that we want to get as fast as possible to the players. We are looking into other platforms as well, but can't go into details there either. Localization is also something that we want to add, and those are like not gameplay feature stuff, but we want to also add some content to the game.
Really good to hear, especially for controller support. I'm even more appreciative for the time that you made today to be on our small show, and I wish you both only the best with Keep Driving.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All the best to you guys.
You too. See ya.
Bye.